Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Almost 23 million XRP moved between four major crypto exchanges. Binance gets half of it. So that's the first story I'm going to cover in this, but I've also got two other articles closely, it's the same topic functionally here, but here's a piece from A&B Crypto titled, Ripple's on-demand liquidity platform to Australia spikes in liquidity to register all-time high. Yeah, we don't talk about, and we don't hear as much about the Australian corridor compared to the first two that Ripple really started gunning for, which would be the Mexico and Philippines corridor. So here's another headline though, same day. Ripple's cross-border bet on XRP just hit record-breaking volume in Mexico and the Philippines. And this is from a different crypto media outlet, dailyhodl.com. Fascinating stuff, all on the same day. This is being reported and occurring here. So, I'm going to dive into all this, but before we go any further, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP, you done came to the right spot, son. Go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel. All right, let's dive in. The XRPL Monitor Twitter profile, which tracks large XRP transactions, has detected 4 consecutive XRP transfers from 5 million to 8 million XRP each. 3 of them were initiated by anonymous senders, according to the Twitter posts. However, the BitHump analytical site shows that those wallets were set up by specific crypto exchanges, and 4 are involved. Nearly 23 million XRP have been transferred in total in the 4 aforementioned transactions. Most of the senders and receivers are marked as anonymous wallets. However, additional data from the BitHump website on each of the transactions provides the names of the senders and receivers. The first transaction was made between 2 crypto wallets set up by the BitHump exchange. In the second one, funds were moved from a wallet set up by Upbit to one opened by Bittrex. The third transaction was conducted between wallets of Binance. In the fourth, XRP was moved from Bitstamp to Binance as well. The transferred XRP amounts to $4.8 million right there. And then here you can see, here's the XRPL monitor. Just grabbed it, little screen grab of the Twitter tweets right there. And then here you go. And then they dive into Ripple and IPO and liquidity highs, which I'm going to talk about, use a different piece to cover that though. And so, you know what's interesting to me, because fundamentally, when these types of things happen, we sometimes it's neat because we actually can reasonably speculate what might be going on. Sometimes we know firmly. Those instances are more rare, most certainly. But very commonly, we don't know, what the purpose of all of this XRP moving around is. But I find it genuinely fascinating that people see these transactions, because people are so ingrained into the XRP community, that they start hunting down, okay, here's a big notable eye-catching transaction. What is the purpose? And people dig in and try and find out. They do detective work. And that I find neat. And sometimes they actually do get some good answers. So as far as what this is here, I don't think that there's... I've seen no speculation that would have been noteworthy for this video. Nothing that I came across when I was playing around on Twitter earlier, looking into this stuff. But... massive movements nonetheless. Let's jump into the next story here, though, from A&B Crypto. Ripple's on-demand liquidity platform to Australia spikes in liquidity to register all-time high. I'm telling you guys, these stories, expect a lot more stories along these lines in 2020 and beyond. This is not stopping. This is just the beginning in terms of real-world adoption, and it is freaking measurable, so I'm happy to report on this. Ripple's on-demand liquidity platform has been forming partnerships and opening gateways across the world. However, only a handful of these are known to the public. However, the active corridors have been reflecting consecutive highs over the past few days, indicating a driven interest in cross-border payments. Well, that was clear. There was clear demand prior to Ripple entering, which is why Ripple went down this whole business path ultimately, right? And the idea of utilizing, well, first of all, a better messaging system for cross-border payments, and then ultimately utilizing a cryptocurrency, XRP, as a bridge currency. Anyway, the newest corridor that became active around January 8th, which is XRP/AUD, has been registering an all-time high for the past 10 days and noted liquidity of almost 1.8 million XRP, equivalent to $408,780. And there's a chart on the screen right there. This is the liquidity index for BTC markets. Now, BTC markets, they are the Australian-based cryptocurrency exchange that has officially partnered with Ripple. And so BTC markets, officially a pool of liquidity with Ripple, plugged in their technology for on-demand liquidity. All right, according to at HMATEJX's representation of on-demand liquidity services, the corridor reflected a weekly flow of nearly $2 million, while the monthly flow stood at $7 million. Ripple's corridor to the Philippines also recorded all-time high for 5 consecutive days. And then here's the other one on the same topic. This is the one from Daily Hodl. Ripple's cross-border bet on XRP just hit record-breaking volume in Mexico and the Philippines. And so let me ask you, before we even cover this further, do you share my investment thesis, just out of curiosity, which is that utility matters and will win the day? If so, this should be very exciting, okay? And none of what I'm saying here is to be taken as financial advice, but I believe that XRP is going to be worth substantially more in the future because it has utility and thus long-term viability. Now, XRP volume just hit all-time highs against the Mexican peso and the Philippine peso on 2 cryptocurrency exchanges that have partnered with Ripple. The Liquidity Index bot reports that the XRP/PHP trading pair on the Manila-based exchange Coins.ph achieved a new record on Sunday. Coins.ph is one of the exchanges utilizing Ripple's XRP-powered cross-border payment solution called On-Demand Liquidity, formerly known as XRapid. Volume on the trading pair has steadily risen since Ripple launched the liquidity solution back in October of 2018. Meanwhile, the XRP/MXN trading pair on the crypto exchange Bitso skyrocketed to a new liquidity index record on Wednesday, according to data from the Liquidity Index bot. And it is on the screen right now. There's a chart right there. Bitso is also one of the exchanges powering on-demand liquidity, which money transfer giant MoneyGram says is now moving 10% of its daily transaction volume between Mexico and the U.S. Am I the only one in at all that acknowledges that the last percentage that was announced by MoneyGram, which specifically Alex Holmes, who is MoneyGram's CEO, it was 15%, not 10%. I haven't seen anybody else. He said it in a CNN interview with Julia Chatterley. It's 15%. And all I see in crypto media and on Twitter is this 10% number. It's like nobody else picked that up. I don't understand that. Anyway, on a recent episode of the FinTech Beat podcast, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse confirmed the rising volume in Mexico is linked to MoneyGram, which isn't exactly surprising, right? That's what one would think would happen as this continues to actually get it used. But don't you think, as Chris Larson, this is why I think this is so significant on a very basic level. As Chris Larson, he's a co-founder of Ripple, has stated in the past, liquidity begets liquidity. And so it's not just that. It's as attention let me phrase it this way. As real-world adoption of this continues, there will be more attention around this in the future. And eventually, cryptocurrencies will run on their own merit. XRP will not forever be tethered to Bitcoin in terms of price action. And what do you think is going to happen when the rest of the world figures out about this? I've got a few ideas. Here's a tweet from HODLstyle on Twitter. It won't matter if you bought XRP at 19 cents or 50 cents. Open your eyes. Utility is coming. Your window of opportunity is getting more narrow by the day. These prices won't stay this low for long. Take advantage soon. I appreciate the sentiment there, and I just came across this on my Twitter feed. And I can appreciate the sentiment, although I will say purchasing at 19 cents much more desirable than 50 because you'll get less than half as many XRP for 19 versus 50 cents. But I get the point that he's saying. It's so low right now that no matter where you buy, the sentiment that he's trying to get across is it's going to be worth a ton in the future regardless. Conceptual, I think that's where he's trying to get to there. So I'm on board with that. I do agree with that. Now, here's another tweet. This is from JP. I came across this one on my Twitter feed as well. I am already feeling guilty for investing in XRP. When this S word explodes, I will say to my friends and family who didn't believe me, see, I'm not schizophrenic. There you go. All right, next. Here's a tweet from Ticket to the Moon. And he wrote this: all this talk of making private keys illegal is troubling. If you were forced to keep your assets on an exchange to comply with KYC, how would you feel? With KYC, of course, being know your customer regulations right there. And then he has a link to a YouTube video where this is being discussed here. Interesting topic. Maybe I can talk more about it in another video, but there's concern that private keys could be illegal, at least in certain corners of the world right there. And Ticket to the Moon ultimately tagged me along with some others. And so shout out to you, good sir. I do appreciate it. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. I wasn't aware prior to this that there is discussion around this, so it's something that I am going to be looking into more because I find it fascinating. Galvatran also responded, and I wanted to share his tweet. Freedom from financial controls is the very reason Bitcoin was created. Now the incumbents are capitalizing on the failure of Bitcoin's promise to materialize and trying to step in with regulation, not realizing they are merely incentivizing decentralization. They will lose. All right, next I'm going to cover this piece real briefly here. I got this from Stone Hodl XRP, and so shout out to you, my friend. Thank you for sending this to my inbox on the Twitters here. And this is from Bitcoinist.com, titled, "Why is Bitcoin usability still so bad a decade later?" And I don't know that I want to take a deep dive, but I did want to highlight this because I think it's fun. And you can see here they've got the rundown. So the two key issues they've got cited at the top: Bitcoin addressing system, as in it's not easy or necessarily intuitive in terms of how to move Bitcoin around, and also security issues. Now, I would add that the technology doesn't scale. It's very slow. What's it? 7 transactions per second. It's very energy intensive, and the more activity on the blockchain, the higher the fees go. You might recall if you're around here towards the end of 2017 with the flurry of activity, there were Bitcoin transaction fees of over $50. Yeah, imagine buying a cup of coffee with your Bitcoin and then paying $50 for a transaction fee. And so there's all sorts of issues. And then on top of that, in terms of usability, there's also not like fundamentally a problem that needs to be solved there. For the vast majority of humans, they're happy using their fiat currencies. They're quite functional. So, you got to go where there's friction if you want to really change the way people are operating within their lives in any capacity. And so it's not really being done there. It's fun to think about, though. So anyway, but I'll leave the video there. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!